night, you're not just drifting off to sleep. You're stepping into a journey, a slow, violet walk through Celtic winter's long past. As the night deepens, let the scent of peat smoke, the creak of wooden shutters, and the distant howl of the wind guide you through a world forgotten by time. Before we begin, if these quiet wanderings bring you peace, tap subscribe, leave a gentle comment, and share this with someone who needs rest tonight. Your quiet support keeps the embers of these stories glowing. Now, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and come with me to a time when nights were longer, fires burned low, and the ancient Celts slept through the darkest nights. Shared. You are inside a roundhouse. The thatch roof hangs low, supported by timber beams that creak gently in the wind. You don't look up anymore, not unless you're checking for leaks. The smoke finds its own way out through the open hole in the center, curling lazily into the dusk. The fire is low tonight. There are only 3 coals still glowing under the heavy black kettle, and you've been poking them gently with a stick, just enough to keep them from dying before the bread is done. Your cloak still smells of wet sheep wool and last week's hot smoke. It's damp at the edges. Everything is, this time of year. The child is asleep already, curled beneath the thickest hide you own, a fox fur hood pulled down over his brow. His breaths are slow, and one arm curls out awkwardly over the edge of the mat, fingers half buried in the straw. You'll pull it back soon, but not yet. He's warm. Outside, the wind sings low through the cracks between wattled walls. You've stuffed them with old moss again, but the weather always finds its way in. A long, cold breath seeps across the floor. It snakes around your ankles, then curls up behind your knees. You shift slightly and draw the wall closer. There is no candle, just the hearth. By this time of night, the village is almost silent. A few doors creak, maybe a muffled cough, but most families are curled in against the chill. Sleep here is not rushed. It settles in slowly, like frost creeping down a window's edge. One step at a time, then another, then a pause, and then stillness. You move quietly now. There are rituals, small ones that you follow without question. The tools must be brought in from the lean-to. You do not leave your knife outside. The damp ruins the handle, and last year the blade was nearly taken. You wrap it in wool, the good one, and place it just behind the hearthstone. You listen. Then lift the water skin. Shake it, just enough for 2 sips in the morning. You smile. That will do. Then, one last shoo. You kneel slowly, carefully before the coals. A small bundle of dried bracken rests in your palm, wrapped in old twine. You touch it to the embers, not to ignite it, but just to warm it. There's a comfort in this moment. Your mother did the same, and her mother before that. If the bracken is warm in your hands, the bed will be too. Outside, an owl calls. You turn. Your ear. Pause. Then return to your breath, slow and even. The sleeping platform is little more than a raised patch of earth and planks, lined with straw, hides and worn wool. The dog has already taken her place beside it. She sighs as you lie, Down. The mat beneath you crunches softly, stalks and husks and fragments of summer. The warmth of the fire touches your feet. You close your eyes in this dark. No one counts the hours. There is no bell to mark the night watch, no candle to burn low in a dish. Only the fading scent of peat smoke, only the hush of breath rising and falling. You think of tomorrow. You always do. The thatch needs patching again. The west side and the last bit of barley must be measured carefully now. The winter isn't over, not yet. But that is not for tonight. Tonight is for sleep, for stillness, for breath that matches the slow wind outside, and for the last coals beneath the hearthstone, glowing faintly as the world disappears. Section 2. When the wolf begins to fail, dog stirs before you do. A soft shuffle of paws on straw, then the slow exhale through her nose. She doesn't bark. She rarely does anymore. Just lifts her head and listens. You follow her lead. The wind has changed. You feel it in your chest before your mind fully catches up. Colder, wetter. It pushes harder now against the patched wattle walls. The moss packed into the cracks trembles with each gust. You can hear droplets gathering above the beam, slow, thick plops, spaced just far enough apart to keep you from slipping back into sleep. The fire is almost out. Not gone completely, but nearly. A single red coal rests in the ash like an old eye, watching. The black kettle has cooled. You can see your breath. The child stirs too, whimpering softly before turning toward the wall. His back curls into the fur. You pull your own wool tighter and sit up slowly, knees aching as they lift from the damp mat. You knew this would happen eventually. It always does when the peat basket runs low. There is no more dry peat. There was, just 3 nights ago, a good stack. But it was damp, you remember now, the last cut from the lowest layer of the bog. You'd thought it might last the week, but it hasn't. And now the last turf block sits near the door, half frozen and slick with moisture. You can't burn it. Not tonight. You stare at it anyway, as though it might dry by will alone. Then reach instead for the bundle of thin twigs tucked behind the doorpost. There aren't many left, less than a dozen, really, but they'll do for now. Just enough to bring the kettle to warmth again. You crouch before the hearth and place them gently over the glowing coal. One twig catches, then another. The fire doesn't roar. It never does. It murmurs quietly, the way the old ones say the world began. It is morning, technically, but there is no light yet, not really. Only the grey awareness that the day is returning, even if the sun isn't ready to show itself. You remember that your neighbor's roof collapsed last winter under a wet snow. You remember how the family moved into the forge for 2 weeks, their children smelling of ash and soot, huddled between bellows and barrels. You remember them coughing. You touch the thatch above your own head and trace the path of water running down the reed stems. You count the drips. 1, 2, then a pause. 3. That patch will need replacing before the next storm. You make a mental list. Reed, twine, time, a clear morning, a favor owed. The bread from last night is stiff now. You chew it slowly anyway, dipping it in what's left of the water. It helps a little. The salt is gone, though. You used the last pinch on the greens 2 days ago. Salt must come from trade, and trade requires the road. You don't like the road this time of year. It's more of a suggestion than a path half hidden beneath puddles and frost and old hoofprints. It winds past the standing stones, where the frost lingers longest and where the deer sleep in tight circles of crushed grass, but you'll have to walk it again soon. Later, you take the ashes from the hearth and carry them to the old pit behind the roundhouse. The child walks beside you, feet bare despite the cold. He hums a tune with no words, one your mother used to sing as she ground grain. A rhythm, nothing more. You step carefully, avoiding the icy patch near the sleeping pig. She grunts softly, snout twitching. Back inside, the fire is burning again weakly, but enough to coax a little life into the day. The sun never really breaks through, just lightens the mist. You kneel to stitch the corner of the child's cloak, where the threads have pulled loose. Your fingers are slower now. It takes longer than it once did. The thread was dyed with crushed berries last summer, and it still smells faintly of smoke. You remember how the juice stained your palms, how the dog licked your fingers raw. You smile faintly. The child does not notice. Tonight, the coals must last longer. There will be no firewood tomorrow, not unless someone walks to the edge of the wood. And that, in this cold, is a burden for 2 bodies, not one. But you remember your father's trick. You scrape the ashes into a small circle, tuck the embers deep, and cover them again. A nest of warmth, hidden, waiting. It's not fire, but it holds the memory of one. And that's enough. Enough to believe it will return. The child is asleep again. The dog sighs beside the mat. Outside, the snow has started, not hard, but steadily. You hear it tapping the roof, gentle as breath. Inside, the last coals flicker. You press your palm near them, not touching, just knee. They are not bright, but they are alive, and so are you. Section 3. The fire that remained. The fire is gone. When you wake, it has left no glow, no ember, no thread of red beneath the ashes. Just a grey ring, soft as old wool. The kettle is cold. The dog's nose presses close, then retreats. You sigh. There's no anger in it. This happens. It always happens, once or twice each winter. You'd hope to catch it, save one last coal by tucking it deeper into the ash. But the cold must have reached it in the night. Maybe the child shifted in his sleep. Maybe the draft came in stronger than you thought. Maybe the peat simply wasn't strong enough. It doesn't matter. The fire is out. You rise slowly. The mat sticks to your knees a little. The floor is colder than before. You stretch your fingers toward the hearth out of habit, and when no warmth greets them, you tuck your hands inside your sleeves. It is a quiet defeat, but not an unfamiliar one. You remember your mother once said, "The fire never truly leaves, it just waits in someone else's house." And so you begin preparing to go to that house. You know which one it will be. Down the path, beyond the barley stores and the pig pen, lives the widow with the broken hip. She no longer gathers her own water, but she always keeps a strong fire. Her daughters bring wood from the grove, and they owe you still for the 3 nights you watched her. When the fever came, you find your ember pot a small clay bowl lined with old moss, wrapped in thin linen. You check the linen first, rubbing it between your fingers. It's dry enough. You wrap the pot in your cloak and press it to your chest. Then, you wake the child. Gently, he rises slowly, blinking. You offer him a half-hardened piece of yesterday's bread, and he chews without sound. You tuck the furs around him again, give him the knife wrapped in wool. You stay, you whisper, "I'll be back before the snow gets heavy." He nods and curls into the warm place you've left behind. The dog whines softly but doesn't follow. You step outside. The sky is a pale lid of silver. The snow is falling in thin sheets, diagonal and whispering. Each flake stings the skin before melting. The path is half gone beneath new white. You walk slowly, carefully. Your feet remember where the ruts lie. The wind moans through the reeds. The trees lean inward like tired shoulders. When you reach her roundhouse, smoke is already curling from the roof hole. You knock softly. She opens the door with effort. No words, just a nod. She understands the ember pot in your hands. She steps aside. Inside, her fire is bright. A thick log, damp at one end, hisses and pops. You kneel beside it and hold your pot near. Not too close, just enough. The moss begins to steam. The linen darkens slightly. The warmth returns. You nod once in thanks. She gives you a cup of broth, mostly water and 2 onions. You sip it slowly. You say nothing. Neither does she. When you return home, the child has not moved. The dog thumps her tail once. You crouch before the hearth and unwrap the ember pot carefully. Still warm, still alive, you begin again. The new twigs catch more easily this time. You add a curl of dried bark, a handful of old rushes, a scrap of leather. The flames return, low and blue at first, then orange. The child opens his eyes and smiles. You sit with him beside the fire. Say nothing at first, just watch it grow. He asks for a story. You give him the one about the ancestors who could trap the sun in a jar and carry it across frozen rivers. He asks why we don't do that anymore. You say the jars were lost. He nods, accepting this. The day is short. By mid-afternoon, the light fades again. You hang the kettle back over the fire, even though there's nothing much to cook. Warm water is better than cold silence. The snow continues outside. A crow hops along the edge of the pig's shelter, pecking at something invisible. Inside, the fire crackles. You think about how many winters you've done this, how many mornings you've coaxed life from a pot of moss and clay, how many nights you've listened to the wind ask its slow, endless questions. You remember being a child, half asleep, listening to your mother murmur to the fire as if it could hear her. You didn't understand the words then. Now you whisper them yourself, not spells, not prayers, just sounds, old ones. Tonight the coals will last longer. You know they will. You press your hand once more near the flame. It touches your skin like a memory. You lie down beside the child, beneath the thick hide. The dog curls closer, Outside, the dark comes again. But it is not empty. It is full of breath and sleep, and the soft weight of warmth returning. The fire is here, and so are you. Story 2. When the salt ran low. Section 1. The slab beneath the hanging meat pig was slaughtered just after the last frost. It had to be. She was growing thin, her joints stiff, and the ground was soft enough now to drag a sled through the village path. You don't like butchering, never have, but you do it carefully, slowly, with thanks. You saved every piece, even the hooves, even the tongue. The fat was rendered over 2 days, stirred until it thickened into a clean white paste. The bones were cracked for marrow, boiled once, then dried again near the hearth. The stomach was turned and cleaned with wild mint and snowmelt. Every part had a purpose, but it all depends on the salt. And now the salt is nearly gone. You check the basket. Only a thin layer remains at the bottom, clinging to the cloth like fine dust. Not enough for the rest of the belly, not enough for the long meat slabs hanging from the rafters. You pinch a bit between your fingers and rub it gently. Still sharp, still dry, but barely a palmful remains. You lean back against the wall and exhale slowly. The fire is steady. The dog snores near the door, but you know what must come next. The road to the coast. Salt doesn't come from the land here. It comes from wind and wave, from sea marshes and trading mouths. You traded for the last basket at the harvest festival, a folded cloak, and a bundle of hazelnuts. Good ones too. But that trader hasn't come since the rains began. The river spilled over its banks, and the low trails are deep with mud. You had hoped it would last. You were wrong. You kneel beneath the meat rack. The low-hanging slab is dripping, still clear and slow, touched with fat. You run your hand beneath it, collecting the oil into a shallow wooden dish. You will use that tonight with greens, but the slab itself must be packed if it turns. You don't let your mind finish the thought. You wipe your hands on a scrap of hide and stand. You move around the house slowly, gathering what you'll need: the travel sack, a thin cloak, a second pair of wrappings for your feet. The boy will stay behind. He knows how to tend the fire now, how to stir the ashes, how to pull the lid from the green pot without cracking it. He's old enough. You'll leave him with the dog, and with your promise. 3 days, you tell him. 4. If the road is bad, he nods, doesn't ask for more, just watches you pack the salt basket with clean cloth, tucking it like a gift inside the bundle. You placed stale oatcakes beside it, wrapped in a dried leaf. One for the road there, one for the way back. Maybe. You sleep lightly that night. A wind blows through the corner of the house, tugging at the cloth near your head. You don't light the full fire, just the coals. You want to save the good wood for when you return. Before dawn, you step out into the grey. The boy is still asleep. The dog too. You don't wake them. The path is wet and unfamiliar. The snow has gone, but it left behind confusion, old branches, rivulets of water where dry tracks used to be. You find the road eventually, but it's changed. Everything is shifting this time of year. You walk quietly, your feet already damp. The salt basket is tied tightly against your back, swaying with each step. You pass the old arch with the spiral carved into it. A marker. Still there. Good.by midday. You reach the ridge above the reed marsh dot in the distance. You see the glint of water. Beyond it, the smell of fish and salt. You stop to chew a piece of oatcake, hard, but still edible, and sip from your leather skin. A crow watches you from a bent tree. You nod to it. It nods back. You keep walking. You reach the salt camp as the sun dips low. It's not really a village, just a gathering of lean-tos, smoke-stained pots, and blackened driftwood stoves. A woman stirs a vat of seawater, her arms red from brine. She doesn't look up when you arrive. She just jerks her chin toward the weighing stone. You place your goods there: 3 beads, polished stone comb, and a strip of boar hide. She inspects them slowly, weighs the trade in her hand, then, wordlessly, she ladles salt into your basket. You nod. She nods. It is done. That night, you sleep near the smoke pit. The ground is hard. The smell of fish oil clings to everything. But the salt is yours now, safe in its cloth, enough to preserve the meat, enough to last. You close your eyes, and in the dark you dream of the boy lighting the fire, of the slab beneath the rafters, dripping slow, of our home that will still taste of food by the end of winter. Section 2. The slow road home. Meaty salt shifts in the basket. You feel it in each step, soft, gritty weight pressing into the small of your back, cushioned only by cloth and hope. It's tied tight with twine, a fisherman's knot at the base, and a double loop across the shoulders. You check it every few steps now. This road is unforgiving. The sun has not shown itself since morning. The sky is a little low, pewter gray, and the wind moves like a wet hand against your cheek. The marsh water ripples with every breath of it, and the path, if it is still a path, has become a patchwork of ankle-deep puddles and swollen moss. There is no one else out. Even the crows have gone quiet. You begin the climb to the high ridge slowly. Your feet ache in places they didn't used to, just behind the toes, and in the soft part where the heel meets the arch. Your wrappings are wet again. The first pair soaked through by mid-morning. The second pair now cling like cold clay to your skin. You keep walking. By midday, you pass the hollow tree where offerings are left: clay figures, bits of bread dried, feathers tied in knots. You pause there just a moment. Place a small pebble in the crook where the roots split. A habit, not a ritual. Not quite. Just something your grandmother once did, and her mother before her. You whisper, but say nothing. Then continue on. The sun does not break through. The weight of the soul feels heavier now, not in the basket, but in the meaning of it. You begin to think of it not as a mineral, but a feature. Salt means meat. Meat means meals. Meals mean fewer nights spent staring at an empty bowl, chewing old barley to fill the silence. You walk a little faster. At the low bend near the birch grove, you meet another traveler, a man younger than you, with a short blade tucked into his belt and 2 sacks slung from a pole across his shoulders. He nods, but does not speak. Neither do you. Words are precious on roads like this. Too many can loosen the thread that holds your mind together. But as he passes, you glance back once just to be sure. He does the same, then disappears down the hill. Later, your stomach reminds you of its emptiness. You chew the second oat cake. It's gone quickly. The crumbs cling to your lips. You lick them off without thinking. The salt is close enough now to smell your mind tricking you, perhaps. But still, you taste it. You pass the standing stone near the flooded field. Its markings are worn nearly smooth, but you know what they once said. Something about water and sacrifice. The stories vary. Your grandmother said that when the floods came early, the stone would hum. You stop and touch it. It is cold. Silent. As you descend toward your home valley, the snow returns. Not thick, not fast, just steady, quiet. You draw your cloak tighter and shield the basket from the worst of it. Below, the smoke from your roundhouse curls weakly from the roof hole. A single line, rising and bending with the wind. Relief is not a feeling, not yet, but something close to it builds in your chest. You reach the door just before full dark. The boy opens it. He's wrapped in your old wool cloak, too big for his arms. The fire is low but alive. He's fed it with bark and a few strips of broken reed. The dog thumps her tail once, then sleeps again. You step inside and set the basket gently near the hearth. Unwrap it slowly. The salt is dry, clean, crystalline in the half-light. The boy grins. You grinned back. That night, you cut the slab down from the rafter. It is firmer now, but still pliant. You coat it slowly, handful by handful, pressing the salt into every seed, every edge, every hollow. The boy watches, silent. This is not a job for talking. This is a job for doing. You finish and hang it again. Tie it with better cord. Rub the rest of the salt into the joints and the smaller cuts. By the time you're done, your hands sting. The dog lifts her head and watches you clean your fingers with warm water and a dull cloth. You lean back. Exhale. The slab will last now. Weeks, maybe months if no mold comes. If no mice find it, if the roof holds. You tell the boy it will be enough, and he believes you. And for tonight, you believe it too. Section 3. The taste of waiting. The slab does not speak. It hangs in the smoky dark like a quiet promise, stiffening now as the salt draws the damp out, as the cold air firms its edges. You check it once, before sleep, running your fingers beneath the cord, testing the drip, the scent. No sweetness, no rot, just fat and salt and smoke. It will hold. You lie down slowly that night, knees folding stiffly under the hide blanket. The child curls beside you, breath warm and steady. The fire pops once, then settles. You stare out the rafters. There is meat above you, and for the first time in days, your stomach is quiet. In the morning, you boil water before anything else. The pot is scrubbed clean, lined with what roots remain, mostly turnip, 1 onion, a handful of dry herbs you tied with twine and forgot about weeks ago. They still carry a little scent when crushed. You cut a sliver of the salted slab, not much, just a corner, and drop it in. It sizzles in the water, leaching its weight slowly. The boy crouches beside the fire and watches. He does not speak, but his eyes follow each movement with soft hunger. By mid-morning, the broth has darkened. You ladle out one bowl and give it to the boy, then another for yourself. It's thin, but rich. It tastes like warmth. You chew slowly, carefully, and when it's done, you sit with your hands wrapped around the empty bowl, not because you're still hungry, but because the heat feels good, because the salt has done its work, because this, right now, is survival. That afternoon, the weather clears, just enough to let light push through the thatch. Not sun, exactly, more a grey warmth, like a memory of brightness long forgotten. You step outside for a while. The earth is wet but not frozen. The pig shelter creaks. A few blackbirds poke at the edges of the ash pile. Everything is moving again. Slowly, softly, as if unsure. You take down the old play jar where you keep your records. Inside, a single bead, one feather, 2 stones, and a bundle of string knots. Each knot marks a day. You untie one, then add a stone to the pile. The child watches from the doorway. Is it spring yet? He asks. You smile. Closer. That night you eat again. A thicker cut of meat this time, boiled with crushed barley and thinned lard. You press the mixture into a flat round, then place it on a stone near the fire. It crisps at the edges. The child eats his slowly, licking his fingers clean. The dog watches but does not beg. You lean back and let the warmth fill your chest. Outside, the stars are barely visible, but the wind has changed. It carries less bite now, more scent. Wet grass, birch bark, a trace of thaw in the distance. Inside, the fire holds steady, and the slab of meat sways gently above you. You're now shaped by patience and salt. In the quiet, you think of all the things that held, the string that didn't snap, the path that didn't wash away, the silence of the salt woman, the glow of the fire, even when the wind came in sideways, and the boy curled beside you, asleep before the coals turned red. You close your eyes. There will be more walks, more trades, more days when the stores run thin. But not tonight. Tonight, the bowl is full. The air is warmer, and the slab is holding. That is enough. Story 3. A Cloak Mended by Moonlight. Section 1. Thread for the Celtic wool is older than you are. It's hard to say how many hands it passed through, how many times it was folded and refolded, worn and rewoven. But tonight, it lies across your lap, heavy and familiar. You shift slightly to draw it closer to the hearthlight. The hole is larger than you remembered. You sigh, not in frustration, but in quiet resignation. You know this routine. You reach for the basket. Inside, a bundle of coarse threads, a bent needle wrapped in a loop of leather, and one small bone spindle, your mother's, passed down when her fingers grew too stiff for fine work. The wind sighs through the top of the thatch again. It always finds a way in. But you don't mind. The hearth glows steady tonight, glowing not brightly, but warm enough. The kettle rests on a flat stone to the side. Its lid rattles slightly with each gust of wind. Steam curls lazily from the spout. You'll sip it later. After the mending is done, you dip your fingers in the bowl of water nearby just enough to wet them, to keep the fibers from splitting as you twist the thread. It smells faintly of lye soap and ash. You hum. Not a song, exactly just a shape in the throat. It matches the rhythm of your fingers. Through the hole. Across the fray. Loop. Tighten. Loop. Tighten. This cloak has been with you longer than any tool in the house. It was a wedding gift, then a birthing cloth, then a covering for a child's fevered sleep. It still holds the marks, patches stitched in haste, dyed by berries and spilled broth, and one long ago stain of blood from a fall on icy stones. You run your fingers over that one now. It's faded, but still there. You don't scrub it away. Some stains are stories. Outside, the moon rises behind thin clouds. You can feel its shape in the way the light bends under the thatch. You pause, listening. No one stirs. The village is quiet this deep into the night. Most have gone to bed. You might have too, if not for the tear. And the dream had come quickly, without warning. You'd fallen asleep earlier, just after dusk, before you even meant to. You were still in your work tunic. Your hands still smelled of smoked barley. But the dream pulled you down fast and hard. You were walking a path you'd never seen, lined with tall stones and bright moss. A crow followed you. Its wings didn't flap. It just drifted behind, always just out of sight. You woke cold, though the hearth hadn't burned out, and the cloak had been caught beneath you, torn where your elbow caught the edge. So now you mend. The thread runs low. You dip again into the basket. This time you pull from the spindle itself, winding a new length and wetting it on your tongue before threading it through the eye. Your fingers are dry now, cracked, but the motions are the same. In, out, loop, pull. You wonder, briefly, who else is mending tonight? Someone up the path. The widow near the ox shelter. She had a tear in her sleeve last week. Or the boy near the old well, he always wears holes in the knees of his trousers. Maybe everyone is mending something. Quietly, in the dark, a soft rustle by the doorway. It's the dog. She rises from her mat, stretches with a long yawn, and pants over. Her fur is thick tonight, and you reach down to scratch behind her ears. She leans into you heavily, a familiar weight, then lies down again near the fire. You return to the stitch, and the thought. You wonder if the cloak will outlast you, if your daughter will take it up next year or the year after, if she'll mend this patch again, or if it will be cut away, replaced entirely, if she'll feel your hand in the seams. You tie off the final knot. The patch is done. It's not perfect, but it holds, and that is enough. You fold the cloak gently, smoothing the edges. Then you rise, slowly, knees stiff, and drape it over the peg near the door, ready for the next cold morning. Ready for walking, ready for work. You return to your bed. The hearth is still warm. The coals are soft now, dimming to a steady hush. You lie down and pull the wool blanket to your chin. The dog settles in beside you. You close your eyes. The stitch The hum, the flicker of fire, they carry you into sleep. And somewhere, far behind your breath, you hear the crow's wings at last. Section 2. What the needle remembers the next morning comes slowly, in layers of smoke and soft light. You wake to the gentle thump of a log settling in the hearth. The fire has held its shape through the night, glowing under its ash blanket like a buried star. Outside, the world is grey mist curling around the lintel, dripping from the eaves in long, deliberate drops. You don't rise all at once. There's no rush today. The weaving is paused. The grain sacks are dry. The goat has not yet called, and besides, you were dreaming again. This time the path was wider. The crow was gone. You followed a different sound, spindles clacking, hands twisting wool, and low voices murmuring about dyes. Women sat beneath hanging hives, and one looked up as you passed. She nodded once, as if to say, "You're late," and went back to her thread. You carry that image with you as you stir the embers. The cloak is still where you left it, folded near the door. It smells faintly of wood smoke and damp wool. You touch the mended seam once, pressing your fingers into the weave. It holds. That's enough. But you still wonder. Your mother used to say that every stitch carries a memory, not the kind you speak aloud. The kind that hides deep in the muscle memory of rhythm, of habit, of breath. She said if you mend something often enough, it begins to mend you too. You remember her voice when she taught you. No pulling, no knots too tight. A thread that's too tense will snap in the night. You never quite believed it then. Now you stitch slower. You gather the mending basket again, not because anything new is torn, but because the habit is a comfort. Today you take out the old woolen tunic, the one with the fraying cuff. Not urgent, not even visible, but it feels right. The thread you choose isn't a perfect match, a slightly different brown, but that's all right. No one will see. You thread the needle and begin. In loop, pull. It's a rhythm more than a task. The kind your hands know even if your mind is elsewhere. Outside, you hear someone call down the path. Then laughter. A child's voice, then another. The sound drifts past like smoke. You don't move to the window. Instead, you keep mending. Your fingers find the rhythm again. The tune you hummed last night rises once more in your chest. You think of all the places this thread has traveled. It was spun from wool you shed yourself last spring, from that stubborn you who always kicks. You washed it in the stream when the sun was high and the water ran clear and fast. You twisted it around the spindle while waiting for the barley to boil. It dried over the fire beside drying fish. That thread has heard more stories than most people have, and now it passes through this cloth like nothing's changed. You pause, not for a break but for a memory. One winter, long ago, before your first child, before your knees ached in the mornings, you sat in a different house. Your mother was mending then. You were watching, not helping, just watching. She was singing a real song that time, one about a woman who mended the moon each night so it wouldn't fall from the sky. You'd asked, Does someone really do that? She hadn't looked up. Of course, she'd said. Who else would? You smile now, just faintly. The thread slips through the wool. Loop, pull, loop, pull. Outside, the sun hasn't risen high, but the light is clearer now. The mist has thinned. You catch the smell of damp earth and distant cooking. Someone's baking bread. The scent makes your stomach stir, but you stay where you are. The stitch isn't done yet. You look at the cloak again. It hangs still. Quiet. Oh, you wonder how many stitches are yours. How many from others? Is there any original wool left? Or has it all been replaced, patch by patch, each time something wore thin? It's still the same cloak, you think, even if every piece has been changed. You suppose that's true of people, too. You finish the cuff. You knot the end gently, careful not to pull it tight. Then you tuck it under with the tip of your nail and smooth the fabric flat. The seam is visible, but that's all right. It's honest work. It shows care. You set the tunic aside and rise at last. The fire needs feeding. The goat has started bleating. The mist has nearly burned away. But you move slowly. You carry the needle with you not in hand, but tucked in the fold of your sleeve, where it won't catch. It stays there all day, warm from your skin, just in case. Section 3. Where the wolf endures there is a small silence that comes after supper, not the silence of hunger, nor the sharp hush of argument, but the kind that settles when the bellies are full, the fire has been stirred, and no one quite knows what to say next. You sit in it now. The cloak is around your shoulders again. You don't think about it much. It simply rests there, its weight familiar, the wool softened by time, the mended edges worn from your body heat. A good cloak, worn well. Outside, the night comes early again. And no one protests it anymore. The dark arrives like a friend, now gently, without storm or dread. It gathers at the door and leans in through the smoke hole above the hearth. It curls into the corners of the roundhouse and paints them deep with shadow. And no candle is lit. You've learned to see without them. In this place, the dark is not empty. It holds memory. It holds peace, and tonight, it holds warmth. Your daughter is curled near your feet, half asleep. Her breathing is steady. One hand drapes across the wool you spun for her, stitched by your hand, dyed with bark and rain. You remember the way her small body shivered the first winter she was born, how you'd wrapped her in rags and held her through the longest nights. Now, she no longer cries in the dark. You think that's how you'll know the years have passed, not by the calendar carved into stones, but by who sleeps through the cold without fear. Your husband breathes softly near the wall. He came in late from watching the traps. His boots still sit damp by the door, their laces flayed and drying, their scent earthy and familiar. You know they'll need mending soon, just as the fishing net did last week, just as the water vessel did last month. Everything needs care in time, but not tonight. The fire is low but steady. You fed it just enough. Any more would waste. The good kindling, and waste is no friend in these months. The ashes glow like the coals of an old story, dimmed but not dead. You reach toward them. not to stir, but to warm your hands and remember. There was a winter once long before your daughter, before your mother passed. Before this house was truly yours, when the cold came early and stayed long, you didn't know then how to store warmth. You burned too much too fast. You stitched too tight. You learned. Now, warmth is a patient thing. It's not in the blaze of fire, or the newness of wool, or the first taste of broth. It's in the carrying, in the daily tending of flame and thread and silence. Warmth lives where care has lived longest. You glance toward the hooks on the wall. There hang the other cloaks. One old, one never quite finished. Your mother's sits among them, faded almost to grey. You haven't worn it in years, but you won't part with it either. Not because of the wool it scratches now, not because of the weight it's too thin for real cold, but because of the stitch near the hem, the one she made while laughing. The thread there is uneven, slanted like rain. She was distracted that day. You remember. A cousin had arrived with honeyed barley and a broken harp, and your mother had mended his shirt with one hand and told jokes with the other. That stitch remains, uneven and perfect. You run your fingers over it sometimes, even now. The girl stirs. You pull the cloak around her gently, letting the fold cover her side. She sighs once and stills. The dog lifts its head, then curls back into itself. You sit back and let the fire breathe on its own. Outside, the frost will be heavy by morning. The path will crunch underfoot. The well will be rimmed in ice, and the hens will peck at frozen ground. But that is tomorrow. Tonight is held in warmth. In the pulse of wool, in the memory of thread, in the hands that knew what mending really means. You close your eyes, just a little. You hum a melody, not the full song, just a wisp of it, enough to honor it, enough to remember the woman who sang while she stitched. And somewhere in the dark, the moon holds, not bright, not whole, but mended, and that's enough. Story 4. The Old Path to the Water Oak. Section 1. The path beneath the moss-deep hearth is older than memory, older than you, older than your mother, older than even the stories told around the winter fire. It begins behind the house, just past the fallen fence post, where the ground softens and the grass gives way to worn earth. You do not remember the first time you walked it, but you have walked it 1,000 times since, and still, it always feels a little different. You step onto it this morning with a soft exhale. There is no rush. The sun is not yet up, but the darkness is easing. The sky painted in that ancient in-between gray that tells you the mist will rise soon, and the birds will call once, then fall silent again. You carry no basket. You carry no tools. Just your breath and the rhythm of your boots, and the old, quiet reason to go. The earth here is soft from last night's rain. It clings to the sides of your soles and pulls a little as you walk. Each step is work, but not heavy work, not the kind that breaks the back or stings the hands. This is the work of walking, of remembering, of doing what has been done before and will be done again. You pause near the alder tree, where the moss grows thickest. Touch it gently, as you always do. There's no magic in it, not the kind they used to whisper about, but it is alive. And it listens. The wind shifts. You pull your cloak tighter. Here, the path narrows. The brambles have grown a little this year, just enough to brush your arms as you pass. You'll bring a blade next time. Trim them back before winter hardens their spines. But not today. Today, they may grow. There are marks on the path, not footprints, though those come. Sometimes, these are subtler. The bend of grass where something stepped. The broken stem of a weed crushed flat by a hoof. The dull shine of slug trails stretched like silver threads across bark and stone. You follow them without thinking. To walk the old path is not just to move forward. It is to listen backward. To hear the steps of those who came before you, not in sound, but in the shape of things they left behind. A worn stone, a broken branch, a place where the bracken does not grow. No matter how much rain falls, you think of your uncle, who always said the water oak could speak. Not in words, not aloud, but in the way its leaves turned early, in the way it drank more deeply than other trees, in the way it never cracked in storms, even when younger trees fell beside it. Listen to the oak, he'd say, not with your ears, with your waiting. The mist is heavier now. You cross the small ditch where frogs will gather again come spring. It is empty now, just black mud and one stubborn fern. The forest thickens ahead, and there, just beyond the bend, you see it. The water oak, still there, still holding. Its branches stretch wide like open arms. It leans slightly to the east, as always, as though bowing gently to the wind. At its base, the stone marker remains half sunk in earth, nearly covered now by moss and the slow fall of centuries. You kneel beside it, touch it once, not to clean it, not to read the faded carvings, just to remember that it is there. This is not a sacred place, exactly, but it is a remembered one. Your grandmother was buried not far from here. Not deep, not formal, just laid among the roots, wrapped in her spinning shawl, the one with the thorn pattern you've never quite managed to replicate. You speak her name, softly, then speak your mother's, then sit, just sit. The forest is still now, even the birds wait. In time, you will rise. You will walk the old path home again, past the alder, past the ditch, past the brambles and the moss, but not yet. Here you wait, here you listen. Here, the water oak holds your silence in its branches, and for a while, that is enough. Section 2. The shape of return. It's harder to leave than it was to come. You shift your weight slowly, rising from where you'd sat beneath the tree. The moss has dampened the hem of your cloak. You brush it off with one hand, but some clings anyway. Threads of green and brown stitched to the fabric like tiny reminders. You were here. The water oak does not move. It never does. And still, you nod to it once, as if it had spoken. Then you begin the walk home. Your feet know the way, even before your eyes do. They find the rhythm of the forest, the dip in the path where the roots cross, the slant where water pools, the bend where the old hazel leans out just far enough to brush your sleeve. You don't hurry. One hurries the old path. It is not a place for speed. The forest does not measure time in steps. Halfway back, you pause near the altar again. The moss is slick now, darkened with dew. You press your hand to it gently. It's cold and soft and smells like river stones. This time, you think of your brother. He was younger, quieter, and though he left seasons ago headed east with the wool traders, you still think of him each time you pass this tree. He once tried to climb it, years ago, fell from the second limb, laughed all the way down. You smile now, just a little. The moss seems to remember. Farther along, the light has changed. Not quite morning yet, but the mist has thinned, and the sky above the trees has turned that soft, impossible color between gray and gold, a color no one ever names, because it never stays long enough to earn one. The birds begin again, one call, then another, then silence, then more. Your house is still hidden behind the hill when you hear the clatter of the pot inside. Someone has stoked the fire that will be marrying up before you, always. She'll have already filled the water jar and swept the hearth. She will not ask where you went. She will know .it is a thing understood. Some mornings require out walking as you near the edge of the path. You pass the place where the soil rises. A small hill, not much taller than your waist. You've never planted anything there, though it gets good sun. That was where they laid the stone jar, the one with the copper lid. No one opens it now. Not since the naming. You nod once, then pass. The chickens are scratching near the gate. The smallest one, your favorite, though you'd never say so aloud, tilts her head as you approach. She makes a single soft sound, like a question. You stoop and toss her a handful of seed from the pouch on the fence post. A morning offering, paid in full. Inside, the warmth of the fire reaches your face before your hands. You set the cloak on its peg, careful to keep the damp hem away from the others. Marion doesn't look up from the kettle. She simply gestures with her chin toward the shelf. Bread, a bit of butter, a smear of berry mash. You take your share and sit on the low stool beside the window. From here, the path is invisible, but you feel it still, pressed into the soles of your feet. A thread of earth and memory and green moss, still winding its way back through you. Later, you will need to gather the sheep, stir the mash for the young one, mend the roof edge before the winds return. But not yet. Now is still the quiet part of morning, the part the old people said belonged not to work, but to waking, to noticing. To breathing. To walking the paths inside yourself, the way your feet walk the ones beneath the trees. You choose slowly, then close your eyes, just for a little while. Section 3. The stone chair, and the first birdsong. It's later now. The bread is gone, the mash stirred, the roof patched just enough. But the feeling of the path remains with you. Some days, the walk is just a walk. Other days, it's something else. You don't always know what, only that something shifted, and this was one of those days. You step outside again just as the mist finishes lifting. The trees, no longer blurred at the edges, look suddenly solid, their leaves crisp against the morning light. Even the gatepost feels firmer, more real. You move toward the stone jar without thinking, not because anything calls you to it, but because some mornings things must simply be done. It rests beneath the ridge, where the bracken curls and dies each winter and returns each spring without fail. The jar is old, not ancient, but old enough to earn respect. Set in the earth with care. The lid once gleamed bright with copper, but now shows green at the edges, verdigris creeping like sea foam over old treasure. You kneel, the way your mother did, your grandmother too, though you only saw her do it once. You do not touch the lid, not yet. The rules are unwritten. You only ever learned them by watching. First, you wait. Then, you speak. A word, maybe two, not to the jar itself. Not really, but to the air. The moment. The memory. You say your name. Then the name of the one who came before. Then silence. Then you lift the lid. It creaks a little, sticking along the rim. You twist, ease it up, and rest it on the earth beside you. Inside, it smells of herbs and oil and cool stone. You don't see the items within, you don't need to. You know what's in there. A strip of wool from the shawl, a bead from your father's sash, a folded scrap of bark with your brother's name carved in the old way, and the feather, always. The feather. And no one knows who placed it first, but every season a new one is added. Yours went into winters ago, from the tail of a gray jay, found near the woodshed. You cleaned it with snow and smoke, and placed it between the folds of cloth with a shaking hand. You smile now, just a little. You breathe in once, then replace the lid. No need to say more. No need to explain why you opened it today. That too is part of the unwritten rules. You rise and walk back toward the house. The earth soft beneath your steps, but not as wet now. The sun has begun to dry it. Near the altar, the moss catches the light. It almost glows. A bird calls, suddenly, not the usual ones. This one is sharp, clear, a note that hangs in the air like thread pulled tight. You look up, and there it is, the jay, perched on the fence post. You recognize its tail. The pattern. It watches you. Then, as if satisfied, it lifts into the air. Gone. Inside, Marin has started the midday meal. She doesn't look up as you enter, just hums a few notes of an old song. When your uncle used to sing, you sit quietly and listen, and later that night, as the fire sinks and the winds rise gently outside, you will sleep, not because you are tired, not because the day was long, but because you walked the path, you opened the jar, you heard the bird, you remembered the names. Sleep comes not as a stranger, but as something returned to you, carried gently, back by the moss and the earth and the water oak's silent watch. And you will dream of feathers, of roots, of walking again. Story 5. How the Celts brought the darkness inside. Section 1. The hearth before the fire. Ray, you tired of restless nights, endlessly tossing and turning? Imagine a time when entire communities found profound peace as darkness fell, guided not by silence, but by ancient whispers. Smoke, and the slow hush of flame. Now, picture a starlit night in an old Celtic village. The sky is thick with winter. The wind whispers through sod-roofed homes, and inside one small roundhouse, under a low ceiling blackened by years of careful fire, a family prepares for the longest night of the year. They are not afraid of the dark. They have made room for it. They are ready. Your eyes adjust slowly. T. First, there is only the soft flicker of embers barely glowing beneath a layer of ash. You don't see much, just the shapes of wood, and woven straw. The air smells of peat, smoke, damp wool, and something slightly sweet, maybe dried berries or herbs stored in the eaves. There's no chimney here, just a smoke hole that breathes slowly, releasing the night's exhale skyward. You pull your blanket tighter and shift closer to the center of the roundhouse, where the hearth waits, still cold, still quiet. It has not been lit yet, not until the others arrive. There's no rush. Dark comes early this time of year, and it lasts. In this village, surrounded by thick forests, ridges and sky, time in winter doesn't move like it does in summer. The sun becomes a brief visitor, the moon a silent companion, and the darkness is not feared. It is welcomed, stored, spoken to. You grew up hearing it said, "Let the dark rest with us," so you do. You sit and wait. The door creaks slightly. Not because anyone is coming in, just the wind reminding you it's there. You glance toward the threshold, but no one enters. Instead, the first real sound is someone shaking their cloak free of snow, just outside. Then Merrick steps in, eyes already on the hearth. He nods once, says nothing, just moves to the wall and begins unwrapping the bundle of sticks he's carried. Each stick is the same length, peeled of bark, tied with a single red thread. They are not for burning, they are for circling. You watch as he places them one by one around the hearthstone, 6 in total. One for each family that still lives in the circle of this old place. Then he sits. As silence settles again, the kind that has weight to it. Minutes pass, then another enters. A woman, this time Mora, with the little one tied to her back. She carries a bundle of dried say and a pouch of crumbled leaves. She places it near the fire pit and bows her head for just a moment. No one speaks. There is no need. This is not ceremony. Not exactly. There is no priest here. No chant. No announcement. Just the doing of what has always been done. You add your piece last. From your pouch, a scrap of birch bark written with lines you carved last winter during the longest frost. You place it in the center of the hearth, then step back. The fire will not be lit until the others arrive, and even then not by flint. Not yet. First, the night must be welcomed inside. Above you, the smoke hole shows only black. No stars tonight. Just the thickness of cloud. Still, the air inside is warming slightly, not from heat, but from presence. From the shared closeness of breath and memory and earth-packed walls. Someone begins to hum. It's not a song you know, but it feels familiar. Low, repetitive. The kind of tune meant not to be heard, but felt. You rest your head. against the wall and close your eyes. The hearth remains dark, but it doesn't feel cold anymore. In the corner, someone sharpens a blade, not for battle, for carving tomorrow's bread. The sound is quiet, rhythmic, a pulse. The little one begins to cry softly. Mora rocks, and the sound fades again. A sheep bleats outside, far off, then quiet, then breath, then warmth. Still no fire, and yet something has begun. You think of what it must have been like long ago, before this place had stone walls or a thatched roof, when all they had was each other and the shape of light held gently in a circle of stones. Maybe they weren't so different. Maybe they sat just like this, letting the night pour in first, before ever daring to ask the flame to rise. You breathe in deeply, the smell of sage, and wait. The hearth before the fire, the breath before the song. Section 2. The flame that waited. The flame, when it finally comes, does not roar. It arrives like breath, coaxed from slumber. One spark, then another, each guarded carefully, as though it remembers its ancestors. The embers glow slowly, fed by dried moss and curled bark from the sacred ash tree. It is not just wood that burns tonight, but memory, ritual, and waiting. This is not about light. This is about timing. You are still seated close to the circle on packed earth, warmed only by proximity. 6 people now share this space, each having contributed something. Bark, bundle, leaf, thread, and now fire, but not yet flame. Merrick cradles the ember in a blackened pan made of shallow iron battered from years of winter use. He fans it slowly, with a feathered fan, not too fast, not too much. Across from him, Mora begins to sing, not in words, but in tones. Breath-turned note. You don't know when she began, only that the sound has been there for some time, like mist settling into valleys unnoticed. The fire answers her, first with red, then with orange, then the smallest flicker of gold. It is not lit to fill the room. That is not its purpose. The flame is not for seeing. It for remembering, for softening the cold walls, not chasing them away, for giving shape to stories without stealing their quiet. And so it stays, small, protected, not in a hearth, but in a bowl, held between hands. This is how the Celts prepared for the longest nights, not by fighting darkness, but by inviting it in, letting it surround them, letting it rest. Even the fire knows its place. Too much light, and the spirits cannot find their way. Too much heat, and dreams fall apart. They say the dreams come easier when you sleep beside low flame. Not inside it, not outside it, but beside. You watch as Merrick passes the fire bowl to the left. Each person cups a hand beside it, not touching, just sharing. The warmth is gentle. The smoke trails upward, almost not at all, and with every slow breath, the room deepens in quiet. The darkness is not outside anymore. It is here, around you, with you, safe, still. There are no lanterns. No torches. No sudden blaze to blind the eye. Only the bowl, passed from hand to hand, the small flame dancing as if it remembers the winters from 100 years before. You wonder how many balls have held this fire, how many songs have kept it still. Behind you, a child has fallen asleep. Mora adjusts her shawl. She does not stop singing. The tone shifts only slightly lower now. Slower, a lullaby for fire, and for you. Someone places dried grass near the bowl. It crackles faintly, but is not fed more. There will be no great blaze tonight. That was never. The point dot in the far corner of the roundhouse. A pile of stones gleams faintly with the fire's reflection. You hadn't noticed them before. Smooth, carefully arranged. Someone whispers, "The winter stones." You don't ask what that means. You just nod. The bowl rests again in the center, and you lie back. The earth beneath is warm now, not from flame, but from bodies, from breath, from the sheer shared presence of staying close. The night is full, but not noisy, not empty either. Full, like the inside of a shell held to the ear, echoing with something older than sound. You listen, you breathe, you wait. Not for morning, not yet. Only for the next breath, the next silence, the next shift in the fire's rhythm. Outside, the world is buried in snow, but inside, there is only this small orange glow, the circle of woven lives, and the gift of stillness that lingers longer than time, the flame that waited. Wait still. Section 3. When the fire sleeps too late is still. The bowl has gone quiet. The flame now only glows, no flicker, no dance. A small eye of red in the center of ash, like a dream halfway between waking and forgetting. N01 tends it, because it does not need tending, because this is the moment it was made for, when even the fire must sleep. You are lying on the floor of the roundhouse, wrapped in wool and skin, pressed close to others, not tightly, not as burden, but as presence. A soft hill of shoulders and knees and arms, breathing in the same rhythm. Now N01 speaks. Even the snoring is gentle, and above the roof, thatch and beam, smoke hole closed. Not a speck of outside light remains. You are no longer aware of what lies beyond these walls, whether it is night or deeper night, whether snow still falls, or if it stopped long ago. None of it matters now. The darkness has been fully welcomed, not pushed out, not challenged, just let in, and in doing so, it softened. It curled around you like a resting animal. It gave you back what you gave it. Silence, safety, stillness. They say the old ones knew this secret, that you should not rush light in before its time, that waking too early breaks the night's purpose. No one stirs. N01 reaches for the fire. Even Merrick, the eldest, has laid down his fan. He sleeps sitting up, hands folded like a prayer. You feel the floor with your fingers. It is warm now, alive. It holds the weight of stories, of winter upon winter, of fire upon fire, of darkness upon darkness, each carried inside like something sacred. A baby stirs, lets out a sound like a bird's breath, then sleeps again. Someone turns over beside you, adjusts a shawl, sighs. A pot shifts near the coals, the tiniest crack of cooling clay. These are the sounds of midnight, of memory. You do not need dreams tonight. This is dream enough. You think, distantly, of how people once feared the dark, how they huddled from it, fought it, feared the spirits that walked its edges. But here, darkness has been invited to share the floor. To sit by the fire. To rest its weary limbs and forget its haunting. Even shadows are allowed to sleep. You close your eyes, or maybe they were closed already. Hard to say. The difference between eyelid and sky is long gone now. The whole world is wrapped in wool and breath, and the last thing you feel before sleep fully takes you is the softness of ash beneath your fingers. Not dirty, not cold, but soft, like powder from a tree's heart, like the inside of something once bright, like the very memory of warmth. And so you sleep, with the fire, with the dark, with the echo of songs still curling in the rafters like wisps of breath from ancestors who once did the same. Story 6. The Village That Smirked in Shifts. Section 1. The first who waits. The wind has settled by now. It moaned through the oaks at sunset, rattled the smoke hole flap, snapped the rushes in the marsh. But now, as darkness rests fully over the land, all has gone still, all but you. You are the first to stay awake tonight, not because of fear, not because of duty, but because it is your turn. In this village hidden deep beyond the heathered hills where few roads dare go, no one sleeps alone, and no one guards the night alone either. Every dusk, a name is chosen to begin the watch, not to keep wolves at bay or fight off raiders. Those threats are rare here. The watch is for something older, something quieter. You rise from your place among the sleeping mats, careful not to disturb the boy cold beside you. His hair is matted with sweat and peat smoke, his breath a tiny rhythm of trust. You step away, wrapping your shawl tighter, and make your way to the doorway. Outside, the world is invisible, just blackness and breath. You do not carry a torch. Light is not what's needed now. Your eyes adjust. You see what you must see. The path, the standing stones beyond, the ash tree that leans near the river bend. You sit on the low stone near the door, the same one your mother sat on when it was her turn, and her mother before that. The stone remembers them all. Being the first to wait is an honor. It means you hold the night before it grows heavy. You keep it calm, keep it slow, keep it warm, like embers under moss. Not to fight the dark, just to walk with it. A wild dot in the distance. An owl speaks, not a warning, not a question, just a presence. You tilt your head toward it. You breathe with it. You have with you a small pouch of herbs, mullein and fennel. You crush them gently. Let the scent rise like a message. Your people believe that dreams do not belong only to sleep, that when one person stays awake in stillness, they catch the stray dreams that wander loose, the ones that don't find sleepers. In time, you are here to collect them. Listen. You remember a time when you were the child in the firs, watching your uncle take the first shift. He would hum low, no tune in particular, just a pulse. His lips barely moved, but the sound traveled through the earth somehow. It's your turn to hum now, and so you do. Inside, the roundhouse is quiet but not silent. You can still hear it though. Rustle of a turning shoulder, the clink of pottery settling, the long sighs of the deep-rested. The fire inside is covered for the night, banked under ash, a mound waiting to be stirred by whoever takes second watch. But for now, it sleeps, as they all do. You touch the wooden doorway before you rise. It's marked with the spiral your ancestors carved to guide the spirits home. Not to keep them out. You show them the way in. They too need rest sometimes, and they know the pattern. There's movement by the stones, not alarming, just familiar. A figure slow, heavy bending, old fire, likely. The weaver who hears the foxes before they come. She always wakes before her turn. You nod toward her. She nods back. Nothing more is needed. The first watch ends not with a bell or a word, but with a glance and a step back toward the sleeping place. Your body is ready now, your limbs full of stillness, your chest soft with breath. The second will keep the silence now, and you, the first, may finally let go. The shift never feels like a sacrifice. It is part of the rhythm. The village sleeps in layers, never all at once. As if some old part of the world might falter if no one is listening. And so someone always does. Tonight, it was you. And now, the dreams you gathered drift into you at last, soft, patient, weightless. You return to your mat, where the boy has turned in his sleep. You lay beside him. The warmth welcomes you back. Your eyes close. The first becomes the sleeper. And the dark continues on, watched and safe. It is Fira's turn now. The second watch. She does not rise like the first. Slow and gentle. Fira has never done anything halfway. She stands with the sound of aged bones and wool and stubbornness, and pulls the shawl tighter around her shoulders. And shoes. The soles of her feet know the roundhouse better than they know leather. She walks once around the hearth, not out of ritual, but muscle memory. The coals are covered, still warm. The child closest to them sleeps on their side, mouth open, one arm cradling a doll made from rushes. Fira does not look long. She has work to do. Outside now, she lifts the flap at the doorway and lets in a sliver of wind sharp, tasting of pine and something distant, maybe snow. She hums, but not like the first. Watcha! Fira hums in rhythm, as if turning a grindstone or pounding roots. This is her way. It was her mother's way too. She settles on the log facing east. The stars have shifted slightly. Still the same sky. Still the same village. Still the same darkness, deep, wide, waiting. But Fira watches it differently. Not for spirits or dreams. She watches for change. For the moment when night begins to lean toward morning. You can't see it. Not really. But you can feel it. If you know how. She reaches into her pouch and pulls out a scrap of dried meat. Chews slowly. She keeps her hands busy wrapping twine into loops, undoing them, starting again. It's not nervousness, it's rhythm. Like weaving, like breathing, like sleeping in shifts. The night is a loom, and her hands pass through it with practiced ease. From the hill, a fox cries once. She nods. Foxes pass through, but they never linger. The village keeps few animals, no sheep. Not here. Too much land to roam. Too many places for predators to hide. Just a few chickens, a pig or two, and the people? Enough. The wind rises. Not enough to alarm her, but enough to stand. She walks the edge of the houses, touching each stone wall as she passes, not checking, greeting. Her. People sleep like seeds under frost, still, hidden, waiting. Her walk is the turning of soil above them, not to wake them, just to say, you are not alone. The world is still here. And then, a soft clatter behind the elder's hut. She turns, waits a deer, maybe, or a pot finally losing its balance in the wind. She does not approach. She does not investigate. The night is full of sounds that do not need answering. You only answer the ones that speak twice. This one does not. She returns to the hearth. The stars are lower now. She can feel it in her knees. That strange ache that tells her the sky has rolled an inch. She crouches near the fire pit. Careful. She lifts a corner of ash, exposing the faintest red glow. Still warm. Still alive. She smiles. It is nearly time. She reaches for the smallest log by the wall and places it lightly on the embers, not to bring full flame, just to offer something gentle. As the third watcher will find it ready. She lays another handful of moss nearby, dry, waiting, and a bit of bark, the beginning of the next shift. Because even a fire, she says, deserves a soft awakening. Inside, someone stirs, not her replacement, not yet. Just a movement, someone shifting in a dream. Baby hearing the fox cry in their sleep. Fire waits. She hums again, this time quieter, almost silent, then still. Her knees ache, her fingers too, but she smiles. She has turned the hearth, she has heard the wind, she has carried the weight of time through the second watch, and soon the third will rise. In this village, no one sleeps through the night, and yet everyone rests, because sleep is not a wall. It is a braid, a weaving of hours and hands and watches and breath. Fire pulls her shawl tight again. She steps back inside, her eyes already closing. She lies down, next to a cousin. No words, no sounds, just the memory of the fire, still breathing, still ready. Section 3. The last who wakes. Her name is Tartar, youngest of the watchers. Not the youngest in the house, but close enough. Still, no one doubts her. Tartar wakes before the second shift even ends. Not by mistake. By feel. By rhythm. She's done it enough times to know. The second watcher lays the last log down, just so, not with urgency, but with care, like setting out a gift you don't want seen. Tartar rises without stretching. She doesn't need to. Her limbs are still woven from sap and wind and whatever makes young deer leap without reason. She does not look around. She does not whisper a good night. She simply steps forward into the still warm air of the roundhouse, and the cold leans back to let her pass. The fire is thinking again, not burning, not dancing, just considering a low red whisper under bark. Tartar kneels beside it, pulls her braid over one shoulder. She hums, She doesn't know the words. No one does anymore. It's a tune the elder taught her, a tune older than teaching. She hums, and the calls answer. A curl of light lifts from the center, pale as the moon's breath. The house is thick with sleeping. A cousin murmurs. A grandmother shifts. One baby, bundled like a root ball, kicks softly in their dream. But no one stirs. They trust her. That's the rule of the third watch. Carry the night until it breaks, and never wake anyone too soon. Tata feeds the fire only what it wants, not more. A pinch of moss, a shard of branch, a coil of dry peel from the last apple harvest. The flame accepts them, like a child waking slowly, no complaints. Just warmth returning, gradually. Tata smiles. The house begins to breathe with her. She opens the top flap of the smoke hole. Just a sliver, just enough to taste the edge of morning. And there it is, the sky. Not yet light, but no longer deep. The stars, softening, the trees beginning to stretch beneath the horizon. This is the seam between night and day, and it belongs to her. She sits beside the fire now, cross-legged, still, eyes half closed. There is nothing else to do. Not until the others begin to wake on their own. One by one, dot in their time, dot and a rush, dot and a bell. Just the slow stretch of bodies coming back from dreams. The coals are nearly flame now, not loud, but certain. The same way the sun returns, not with shouts, but with presence. The roundhouse shifts. A throat clears. Someone sits up and yawns, rubbing their eyes, muttering something about a dream where the floor floated like a boat. Tata nods but says nothing. The third watcher doesn't speak unless asked. That's the way. The elder stirs. Not much. Just enough to know. He doesn't open his eyes yet. He doesn't need to. He knows the night was carried well. He knows the fire lived. Outside, the first raven calls from the roof beam. A low, yawning crunk. Another reply, distant, deeper in the trees. And then not quite sunrise. Not yet. But close, close enough. The village begins to lift, softly. A child rolls over and sits up, blinking out the smoke hole. A woman pours water into a bowl, splashing a bit on the floor. The chickens scratch behind the walls. The door flap opens fully, welcoming light, not chasing darkness, and Tata. She does not announce the end of the watch. She does not call for anyone. She simply stands, steps back from the fire, and walks toward the wall, where a corner of her still holds her shape. She lies down in it again, curling like a leaf returning to its branch. Not to sleep again. Not yet. Just